Hello there, guys. We're back for part 2. So we got through industrialism and imperialism and how those fit together. And so now we are going to get to the long-term causes for World War I and how that whole thing started up and what that meant after that. So the main causes, which you should hopefully know by now since it was an assignment, the MAIN causes: militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism. And these, as you should hopefully know, really all stemmed from the ideas of industrialism and imperialism, right? So imperialism is a big one because that caused that competition between our nations, and you could even say that nationalism, it just depends on your school of thought here. Obviously, as I have said, imperialism is really where I believe it all began because it's caused that competition. It caused for countries to really think that they were greater than other countries. But some people believe that that nationalistic spirit was there before the imperialistic era. It's completely up to you to determine what you think. But anyways, regardless of that, those go hand in hand with each other. And then because of our industry, many nations believe that they need to have a more advanced and better military, and with industrialism it was very easy to make better munitions, right? Having new weapons that we get to later with things like, of course, our machine gun being the most notable, but even things like using chlorine gas and stuff like that. So that militarism and that idea of having a large standing army also like kind of plays into that nationalistic piece, okay? Hold on just 1 second, I'm gonna take a quick drink of water. Thanks, guys. Anyways, and so that also led to the feeling or the need there of alliances, because we have these big military buildups. We really want to make sure that that if a nation decides to attack us, that we have friends who also have large militaries so that we can go and attack them. So we make up all these defensive alliances, and really this sets what we like to call the powder keg, or I call the powder keg anyways. The MAIN causes are kind of the body of the powder keg, and all we really need is just one spark, something big to happen, and boom, we're going to be at war. And the powder keg, I say, is set in the Balkans. And the reason why is because the Balkans have been having a rough time. In case you're wondering where the Balkan region is, I should have put a map on here, dang it. Go me. Maybe I'll try and add a map. But it's southeastern Europe, okay? And it's the area of like Romania, Bulgaria, right? Today, anyways. But there was this little nation, Serbia, and it got a little bit crazy. So you may know a little bit about this. I'm sure you probably do. But Serbia, because they are Slavic and they are Serb nationals, they kind of had that own nationalistic spirit going on, right? It's not just from our big countries that we see this, but little countries as well, and especially within ethnic groups. And so our Serbs, part of Serbia, have been taken over, try that again, in the Bosnia area, Bosnia-Herzegovina, right? And I always say that really rough, so just, don't judge me. But anyways, in that area, they had been taken over by the Austro-Hungarian Empire, okay? And the Serbs really wanted their own power, their own nation. In fact, they thought they would build a Slavic nation and call it Yugoslavia, and it might sound familiar because it actually was a country at one point. So, long story short, I know you're like, too late, Mrs. Lindemeyer. What happened was there was a terrorist group, the Black Hand Gang. They came together with a plan to shoot the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, who was second in line to the throne. He was going to be making his way through the streets of Sarajevo in Bosnia-Herzegovina. And he even chose to do an open-top car. Oh, it's such a sad story, seriously. If you want to investigate it more, I highly encourage it. It's actually a very sad story. But he had an open-top car. He wanted to show everybody his faith in bringing this part of the empire under Austro-Hungary. Oh my God, I'm struggling. The Austro-Hungary Empire. And really letting them have a voice in how the empire was run. He was a very big proponent of that. But because he was second in line, he was a very good target for a terrorist group from Serbia who came in, and through a very strange, weird turn of events, very long story short because I want to get moving here, but he does end up actually getting shot. This was actually an attempt right here, but it actually didn't happen for him. He actually gets shot with his wife in a street right across from a deli because the terrorist attack was apparently over, and that's a really long story. So I know I keep saying that. I'm going to move on, okay? But this was the spark because Serbia is best friends. They have an alliance with Russia. And Russia had, unfortunately, they're going through their own problems right now, kind of like becoming a communist nation pretty soon. They're having their own problems, and they hadn't backed up Serbia over a couple of different conflicts that they'd had with another Balkan country, Albania. And finally, Serbia just looks at Russia and says, please help us, because Austria-Hungary, yes, I abbreviated them there, gave Serbia an ultimatum saying that they could come into Serbia, put down any kind of subversive movements, and they wanted to investigate Franz Ferdinand's death and make sure that there's nothing else other than the government happening. And so Germany, because they are friends, Germany and Austria-Hungary, Germany says, okay, go for it. Well, Serbia really doesn't want to agree to the entire ultimatum. So on July 28th, 1914, Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia, and it starts off this whole chain of declaration of war. And Russia does decide that they're going to go to Serbia's defense in this part. Okay, so our alliances, Russia had to defend. They really want to have that Balkan region, so it begins to mobilize their troops. Germany demands that Russia steps down, but Russia knew that they had the backing of France. And then on August 1st, Germany declares war on Russia, and 2 days later, they declared on France. Germany begins their offensive against France by going through Belgium, a neutral country, with a plan that they actually came up with years before this started, almost a decade. And finally, this really angers Great Britain because it's a neutral country, and Belgium's kind of close to Great Britain. Yes, they have the whole English Channel like separating them, but still. So then they end up declaring war on Germany. And boom, our sides face off, right? So we have our Central Powers. They're called that because they're actually centrally located in Europe. But Germany, Austria-Hungary, the Ottoman Empire, Bulgaria. We have our Allied Powers, France, Great Britain, Russia, Japan, Italy, and the U.S. is going to join in later. What does this mean? Well, we have trenches that happen because so many people, it's actually really strange to me, but so many people thought this war was going to be insanely quick because they had this amazing technology that they were going to be able to use. But it wasn't, because really if you have a machine gun that mows people down very quickly, it's efficient killings for sure, and it's going to give you mass casualties, but it's not going to make a war shorter. What ends up happening is we have that entrenchment begin, and that those trenches become kind of like the calling card of World War I. Okay, so what's really the legacy of the war? In the end, really most of Europe was not happy with the treaties that happened. So here's that cause-effect thing. People found themselves in a new country where they didn't want to be because there were more countries that were built after all of our treaties that were made. Treaty of Versailles is the big treaty, but there were separate treaties that were made as well. In fact, the United States did not even sign the Treaty of Versailles for lots of different reasons, but I won't go into it because I get a little too impassioned about it. So they also lost huge amounts of territory and prestige. That whole nationalistic spirit and that whole imperialistic age is now kind of diminishing, at least for a little while. Germany, of course, collapses into financial ruin because of the fact that the Treaty of Versailles blames all of the war on them, and they have to pay billions of dollars in reparations, and as we probably know, it does not bode very well for them. And then, of course, the total cost of the war is over $330 billion, which is crazy. These feelings, of course, of economic devastation faced by Germany left really the possibility of another war being out there, especially with that war guilt clause that they placed on Germany, blaming the entire war on them, okay? So here then comes our in-between. I'm hoping that we're moving through pretty quickly. So the in-between sees some new things happening, okay? And this is where some of the stuff that you've already been looking into is going to pop up a little bit, okay? So there's the League of Nations, which is supposed to be like a League of Nations. Oh, come on, guys. It's supposed to be nations coming together to have a forum to talk out their problems so that they won't go to war with each other. And so literally, it's there to keep the peace and not go to war with each other because we know that that war was really bad, right? But now we have another problem happening. Like, there's all these nations that we took over, but some of them want freedom. And so that's when we see some of our first independence movements happening during this time, is because it's a time where European powers are not as in control as they were before. They're not as stable. And so we have some of those nations who are trying to fight for their freedoms or fight for complete separation from the mother country. But the other problem that's happening is the rise of our dictators. Most notably, of course, Hitler, through that appeasement process, which is literally just, we give him what he wants so he stops threatening to do what he's doing, okay? And this is that in-between time. So we see the League of Nations, because they don't want war anymore, right? No more war. So what they start to do is, anytime Hitler wants something, they say, okay, you can have it, but just don't ask for anything else. Okay, you can have it, but just don't ask for anything else. And anyone who's ever been to the grocery store with a 3-year-old who wants some candy knows you can't just buy the one piece of candy. You might want to have to buy them a toy, right? And then maybe they see some more candy on their way out. And what are you going to do? Are they going to keep whining? They're going to keep complaining? Or are you going to give it to them, right? That's appeasement, my friends. And it did not work out very well, because, as we know, Hitler did indeed invade Poland, which started off the entire, well, he did a lot of stuff, but the invasion of Poland is what started the war in 1939, okay? So, all right, moving on. I think I can finish here. So then what is World War II like? I'm making it real fast, real short, sweet and to the point. It's a fast blitzkrieg, okay? The lightning war, it's quick. We don't want that trench stuff anymore, okay? It's different too. There's 2 theaters. So we have, well, it's kind of 3 if you count the African theater as well. But we have that in Europe, right? And then we have our Pacific theater as well. And you're like, where the heck did Japan come from? I'm going to tell you, Japan was smart. And when the United States came in and said, open up your doors for trade, remember that? They, honest to God, decided that they were just going to start modeling themselves after Europe. In fact, taking much of their stuff, their constitution and the way that they practice their economy, they kind of modeled off of Germany, or at least the way Germany was, okay? And so they were in it for a while. However, as we probably know at this point in time, Allies end up winning the war again with the help of the United States. And so, boom, World War II is done. Okay, so this is just giving you some context. I know that was like super, super fast, probably the fastest World War II ever, but I'm sure you've heard of it before. I also want to be able to finish for you in the next 2.5 minutes. So, last one, my friends. Okay, so what about the Cold War? What is this? Because you're going to have to know it. Trust me. Okay. So post-World War II is a lot like post-World War I. What the heck do we do all these nations that we took over, but now some of them want freedom? All right, it's still happening. It still continues, that fight for freedom. So a lot of these things that you're reading about, the revolutions and stuff like that you've read, these are happening during these time periods. But now there's more, and it's scarier, because the 2 countries that come out the best after World War II are the United States and the USSR, the Soviet Union, right? And now, because of World War II, we see the development of nuclear weapons, and it's a race to get those weapons, and it's going to be crazy, okay? So this is that context. I really hope you can now see that cause and effect relationship from the Industrial Revolution to imperialism, from imperialism into the beginning of World War I, from World War I to the in-between time, which leads to World War II, which then leads to the Cold War. If you have any questions about it, I just wanted to kind of take a second, like pull back, kind of look at what we're seeing across history before we get into the Cold War, because the rest of the class is really the Cold War, contemporary issues for us to look into, and then moving into what we think the future is going to look like before we get to that last little big history project. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with through the rest of this, and I just hope that if you have any questions, you're continuing to reach out. You guys are so good about that. And I just absolutely love this class. I love my students, and I hope that this helped a little bit for you. Okay? Talk to you guys later. Thanks so much.